Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Tisha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have a strategic leader who has been instrumental in scaling high growth businesses through expert operations and strategy. His name is Michael. He's the Executive Vice President of Business Operations and Strategy at Founder Shield. He's got nearly a decade and a half of experience that spanned all operations, analytics, across technology and consulting companies. So, Michael, I'm super pumped to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Could you just go ahead and tell the audience more about you, more about Founder Shield?
Sure. Yeah, you did a great job, Tisha, with the tee up. So I don't know if I can match that, but I'll see what color I can add. I've spent a decade and a half helping startups scale from being the fifth overall employee to post-acquisition merging into a greater company. You know, I've kind of seen a lot of different versions of startups scale and growth and ages. But yeah, my background is in business operations and strategy and really just doing whatever I can to keep the trains running on time and building the scaffolding for growth and meeting that growth wherever the company needs it to be.
That's good stuff. I happen to know a lot about this area because I also built a career in the same space.
Yeah.
So I love meeting my sisters and brothers in operations because we just have such a unique perspective about what it takes for a business to actually go, right? Where we get into the weeds and know what the pieces and parts are. It's not the theoretical presentation of business ever. It's always the depth. So I just appreciate you already. So Founder Shield operates in this very fascinating space. You're serving high growth companies that move fast. They take calculated risk, yet insurance by nature requires understanding and mitigating risks. So can you kind of walk us through a moment where you advised the client to slow down or to add coverage that felt like friction to their growth trajectory, even though you knew that it would protect them from a scenario that they had not really considered? Just tell us a little bit about how you might navigate conversations where risk management feels like it's working against the entrepreneurial instinct to move quick.
I have no background in insurance. When I came to Founder Shield, I really just, had a background in scale. And Founder Shield, you did a great job of explaining, the confluence of a technology platform that can grow with a business, specifically startups who, year over year look very, very different, right? Their revenue profile looks different. Their risk and coverage needs look different from year one versus year three. And because I have that background in seeing that firsthand, it was just a natural fit to join Founder Shield and help them grow and meet the needs of their clients. As far as how our team approaches managing our clients when they need to scale, it's really interesting when you take the whole ecosystem of insurance and startup growth and think about what does a client need in a current environment, right? So for example, when people were pounding money into cryptocurrency startups and we were in a ZERP environment, right? Like nobody had any issue paying premiums. They wanted to have full coverage. Now, as interest rates start to creep up, as people are a little bit tighter with the dollars and their runway and their investments, they're starting to question, well, do I really need this? Do I really need that? Do we really need to, have this approach? How? And so the sell itself, beyond just our tech platform and what we're providing, needs to adapt to that environment for really any client, but especially those that are not in that hyper growth stage anymore, but are starting to really plateau and really think about their P&L from a strategic standpoint.
So tell me a little bit about kind of still thinking about the platform a little bit. So the insurance industry, we know, is traditionally relationship processes and stuff like that. But Founder Shield is tech, right? Tech-enabled boutique. When you're deciding around operational investments, you specifically, maybe it's something like building a proprietary technology platform or really thinking about your data and analytics capabilities. How do you balance innovation that's going to differentiate you from these traditional brokers against the reality that the clients that you serve ultimately need trusted expertise and strong carrier relationships.
In the insurance world, like there's two sides of the barbell, right? There's the fully automated robo broker. You plug in your information and you get spit out a quote immediately. There's really minimal customization, but your time to check out and your ability to get something is really fast. And then on the total other end, what you think of very traditional old school brokerages who are, some of them are multi-billion dollar companies, but they have a whole team of assets and people who are there to support you. We sit kind of in the middle, right? Where we do have that white glove service, but our entire service is backed by tech platforms that are both external facing and internal facing. People might call that the messy middle, and they might advise others to pick a lane and pick a niche, but we've been able to carve out a really great business living in that space, because as our startups, they grow, they may start at the beginning at the barbell, full robo broker, but eventually, like, they're going to need more tailored solutions. They're going to need access that maybe these robo brokers don't have access to. And so for us, it's always about what investment are we making that makes sense for our clients and for us as a business, right? There have been plenty of opportunities for us to jump into certain markets or work with certain carriers and offer certain coverages, but the investment itself just didn't make sense for what the return would look like, or a version of that investment didn't make sense. So the potentially amount of hands-on work that would have been needed to deliver what we would have wanted didn't make sense for the amount of revenue it could have generated, or the total addressable market. And then on the other end, we could have scaled it back to something that was very similar to low touch and hands off, but it wouldn't have provided the value that we would have wanted to for our clients. And so, I don't think there's a one size fits all solution. It's just taking kind of every scenario and running them through kind of your framework of, does this make sense with what we have? Looking forward, is this a decision that is best for our business, best for our clients, and helps us move us towards our goals?
Yeah, that's a great way to frame ROI. I think it's one of the most underrated parts of decision making is, what impact will this decision have on the actual outcome, which means that it's relative to where we are right now, who we are, and what we do. So I like that you frame that up in that way for our audience. So right now, you guys are serving these emerging industries, companies that are building in crypto, AI, biotech, and these other sectors where traditional underwriting models may not actually fit. So when you're making decisions to pursue a new vertical or a niche product, you're really betting on which emerging markets are going to scale and which ones might fizzle out. So
Yeah.
how do you evaluate these opportunities? How do you evaluate opportunities, especially in these industries where they don't have historical loss data, right? You don't have a whole bunch of stuff to work from, or they don't have established insurance frameworks. What framework helps you to distinguish between genuine market opportunities versus following hype cycles?
Yeah, we work really closely with carrier partners, and I have to give a lot of credit to our insurance teams, like our broking team. The guy at our company who heads up insurance operations and broking really does a fantastic job of keeping open lines of communication with our carrier partners about what we're seeing, what they're seeing, how we can best all kind of live in the same ecosystem together, and wins across the board for everybody. So that's on the back end how we service and create products that are potentially available for our clients. And then on the client side, it's just about setting expectations. We'll always have a conversation with somebody, right? We'll always work with someone and try to get them the best solution possible. And for some, it makes sense, and for others, we may not be able to provide them with what they need at a given time, or their venture, frankly, just may not be insured, right? And that's something that we are going to be painfully transparent about, because we're not in the business of just like sucking dollars away from people. Have built our business because of the thesis of, let's work with people early on, and as they grow, we'll grow with them, and everybody wins in that scenario. So we don't necessarily pick and choose industries, but we very much so create a narrative and an expectation for a specific industry, just based on their risk profiles, what we can provide for them.
That's good. So the thing that sits out for me is setting expectations. I think that that's a really It's a big one. It's a big behavioral piece too, right? You setting expectations will actually determine how the customer responds and what they actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're partners with these
Yeah.
people. I know everybody says that they're partners with clients, but we really are. We want to make sure that they're set up for success, and we're setting expectations. It's really hard also to, like, create a good relationship as a broker if you're not doing right by them. It kind of becomes really apparent very quickly, and it's very easy to lose clients. It's happened to us a lot, and we've done it to other people. People switch around all the time, low switching costs and low barriers there. So the importance around our responsiveness, our reliability, and the trustworthiness that we can establish is a huge differentiator for us.
Okay, so your background, we're going to talk about you a little bit here. So your background really spans operations roles at places like Shopkick and Canvas AI before joining Founder Shield. These companies are operating at very different scales and stages. So when you're implementing operational processes at Founder Shield, how do you apply the lessons from tech company operations that you've been in to like a brokerage environment where regulatory compliance, carrier relationships, client service models are just fundamentally different? Are there any principles that transfer across these industries? And if so, which ones require completely different thinking?
Yeah, my background, I have no industry specific background, right? Canvas is a market research technology platform that measures language and tries to quantify the qualitative. A Shopkick was a consumer shopping app, right? None of these things have anything to do with a Founder Shield. Actually, when I was at Canvas, I was a very early employee. I was number 5 overall, and I was actually a client of Founder Shields back
What?
then. And so when I joined, I went into our Salesforce CRM system and I saw my name as a contact. So
That's
that's,
awesome.
just a little anecdote there. Translates across the board for me because, again, I don't have that layer of expertise in the subject matter when I first joined, or even now. Insurance is insane. I know a fraction of what some of our folks who are doing this day to day with our clients know. It's creating being I like to think of it like a hub and spoke model, right? Where, like, I am the hub, and I know I know maybe not what the resource or a stakeholder knows, but I know what that they wouldn't know something, right? And so I know where to tap. I know what level, where, I need to get information from, who I need to speak to, who I need to get together in a room, and taking that model of, like, okay, being the central hub of information and being able to pull in everybody and creating like cross referential work, um, is like the biggest takeaway that I've had. And you may think, oh, it's a 5-person company or a 40-person company or a 100-person company. Everybody knows everything and everybody knows each other. And that's just not true, right? And it gets harder as you scale and get even bigger. Being able to kind of keep that approach of working cross-functionally with other groups, regardless of size, has been like the guiding principle, I think, of what I've done in places. And it's really been the engine behind any type of process implementation or change or go to market strategy or what have you. That's been the foundation for all of it.
I always tell people that business operations makes real the statement, teamwork makes the dream work. Like, we are like the livers of that. We
Yeah.
understand fundamentally what that means, what collaboration means. Here's a little quick message. This one is for our audience though. I want you to think about your organization's operations and risk management. What strategic decisions have created the most meaningful impact on your ability to scale and manage growth effectively? Share your experiences with us on LinkedIn and other social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. Okay, we're going to go into what I call the decision persona section. We're going to explore your decision making style through an assessment. I'll ask you 4 questions which represent different approaches. And after each one, you're going to tell me how much it resonates with how you actually make decisions. And you'll have a scale from 0 to 100% for each one. But you only have the same scale of 0 to 100% for all
Okay.
of. Okay. And so after each one, I'll stop. I'll ask you, how it resonates. You're giving me your percentage and tell me a little why.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And no, I won't give you all 4 up front because that's not how this works.
Yeah.
That makes it no fun. Okay. So the first one is called The feeler. It's a values driven leader. So this persona prioritizes alignment with core values. That's okay, Horn. This
New York, it's New York City. It's a nice day. I got the window open,
That's
so I
you know what?
apologize.
The noisiest city in the world, by the way. Like, I remember one time being in New York and it was like a band playing at 2 o'clock in the morning. At least I thought it was. I woke up out of my sleep like, oh my God, what is
Yeah.
going on here?
I have
Like,
two young kids at home, and it's like they sleep through everything. It's unreal. I'm afraid if we move to the suburbs that it'll be too quiet for them.
right? So I get it. I was just in New York, crazy place. Okay. Not even a crazy place, just a noisy place is what I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the feeler. So prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. So when considering a new operational strategy or client engagement at Founder Shield, I ask myself, beyond efficiency metrics, how does this decision affect the founders trusting us with their company's protection? The entrepreneur who bootstrapped their vision into reality, the team that's scaling rapidly and counting on us to anticipate risks that they don't see coming. If we standardize our approach to improve margins, but lose the hands on partnership that helps clients truly understand their coverage, we haven't created better operations. We've become just another broker. When growth pressures push towards serving more clients with less touch, how do I balance the business need to scale against the commitment that every founder deserves strategic guidance, not just policy placement? So, Michael, how much does approaching decisions through that partnership quality lens resonate with you?
I'm afraid that I'm going to do the cop out answer, but I want to say 25%, but truthfully, I think on paper, everyone will say like, 25%, I value everything. But I know that when you take something out of the lab and into the real world, there is the human element of that really does take precedence sometimes over what a spreadsheet may say to you. So especially in our business where it is so much about client service and the people servicing those clients, regardless of what tech stack you have. And we've been able to manage growth and serve more clients with less people because of how we've listened to our people and grown. So my initial thought was 25%. I'm going to say 40% for this.
Awesome. All right. So you know that leaves you 60%. We're
I'm
keeping
taking
track.
notes so I know how much I have of my budget left.
Yeah, that's right. You understand budget. That's why I love operational folks. All right. Here's the next one. It's called the planner. It's the strategic visionary. So this persona focuses on long-term implications and future-proofing decisions, thinking several moves ahead across multiple scenarios. So when making strategic decisions about Founder Shield's operations and market positioning, I'm considering three divergent futures. In one scenario, insurtech platforms commoditize brokerage services where our tech enabled approach becomes table stakes and we need deeper specialty expertise to differentiate. In another, economic headwinds force startups to scrutinize every cost, making our ability to optimize coverage and pricing our primary value driver. In a third, new regulatory frameworks around emerging technologies create demand for brokers who can navigate complex compliance landscapes. Each future requires different capabilities. The first rewards deep vertical expertise. The second demands sophisticated analytics and cost optimization. The third requires regulatory navigation skills. How do I build operations that position us to thrive across these scenarios without diluting what makes us distinctive? Okay, Michael, how much does that multi scenario approach drive your strategic thinking?
Um, I honestly, I'm going to say 20% here. And that's not to say that it doesn't drive it, but I think the multi-strategic approach and planning for 3, 5 years out in the future is important and it needs to be consideration. But any good business operations professional worth their salt knows that what you write down is it's never going to be the case, right? And so it's important to consider it, but ultimately you should know that you're going to have to adapt regardless and rely on your team and your ability to adapt to a future that you didn't really anticipate. And so while that's why I put it at 20. It's important, right? But it's not, it shouldn't be the end all be all, especially at an early stage where you don't really even know what you have yet until you've really, really matured and hit steady state.
When I think about good is good, like that, so this is good secure advice right here, guys. So, like, if you're a startup, for example, there's so many unknowns that you just can't go so far out. So, I hear this on this podcast. This is consistent, good advice, a good way to think about it. But there does come a point in time where you've got to be able to look at these scenarios. So, it really is about where you are and what you're doing. So, that's really, really good. Okay, here's the next one. It's called the counter. It's the challenger of assumptions. So this persona questions conventional wisdom and looks for contrarian opportunities. So when evaluating operational strategies, I ask myself, what fundamental assumptions about insurance brokerage might be limiting our thinking? The industry has long operated on the premise that relationships and carrier access are not the moat. That success actually comes from who you know and which markets you can place business with. But if that's becoming less true, what if in a world of digital distribution and transparent pricing, the real differentiation is understanding emerging risks before markets price them? While traditional brokers optimize for commission revenue and carrier relationships, what if we build around client outcomes and risk intelligence? When deciding whether to reinforce industry norms or challenge them, how do I avoid the trap where being different makes carriers or clients question our credibility? Okay, Michael, so how much does that assumption challenging perspective shape your work?
Yeah, I'll say 30%. That's the whole thesis and an idea behind Foundership as a business from our two co-founders, Benji and Carl, was let's challenge the traditional brokerage model. Let's challenge the robo brokerage model and provide a brokerage experience that just doesn't exist right now. And it's proven to be incredibly successful. And we've really taken that ethos with everything. Of course, in an industry like insurance, there's only so much challenging that you can do, but there's always opportunities for innovation and providing something that the market doesn't asking for, but hasn't been given yet.
Yeah, good stuff. I hope y'all hearing this, y'all. This is really good stuff. Okay, here we go. The data driver, which is evidence-based decision maker. So this persona relies on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to validate decisions. Before committing to operational changes or market expansion strategies, I ask myself, what evidence reveals which activities create genuine client value versus impressive internal metrics that don't translate to retention or growth? I want rigorous analysis distinguishing between metrics that demonstrate operational efficiency, like quote turnaround time, policy issuance speed, cost per acquisition, and indicators that predict client success, like claims handling effectiveness, coverage adequacy, preventing business disruptions, clients who renew and expand coverage as they scale. The metrics that prove we're operationally sound are immediate, but the outcomes that reveal whether we're truly protecting clients' growth trajectories often don't materialize until years later when a claim validates that our advice or our coverage gap creates business impact. Okay, Michael, how much does that evidence seeking approach guide your decisions?
I think I screwed myself over here a little because I think I only have 10% left, but it's so much more than 10%. I'm going to borrow a couple percentages from the other three buckets. It's a huge piece. My background is in data analytics. Everything I do, not everything, a vast majority of what I do starts in a spreadsheet within our CRM and just pulling the numbers to see, is there something here? Are we missing something? And then taking that out and speaking to, our teams and our stakeholders, and then putting our assumptions to test in the real world. We also track not everything, but anything that's important, we're tracking. And we really like to highlight key indicators to make sure that we're laddering up to the overall strategy of our initiatives. If you have a strategy that has like 10 different success metrics, it's hard to have people have a sense of what they're doing and how what they're doing impacts things. I really love a North Star metric to say, if we can keep a retention rate at a certain percent of clients, and if we can hit a certain close rate, and if we can hit a certain revenue per employee rate, which shows our efficiencies, right? Depending on whatever we're talking about, whatever initiative we're working on, that helps other people make autonomous decisions. And so rooting ourselves in data analytics and information is super important. Now, that doesn't mean it always exists, the data that we need, but some of the biggest decisions that we've made as a company and some of the biggest transformations we've made have started through some form of analysis and
Yeah.
understanding that we're not approaching our business the way that we should. And if we just manipulate these factors and turn these levers, we can start seeing growth and, uh, margin accretion and opportunity that we haven't yet been able to attain.
Yeah, I think we just found your secret sauce right there. I mean, the other thing you said is super important is the assumptions, right? So I do this analysis that helps to develop these assumptions. We track these assumptions so that we can understand whether or not they were true or not. Great. Good, good stuff. We
Yeah.
found magic sauce
Yeah.
right there. So let's do your revise. How would you revise the numbers? Right now, you've got 40% feeler, 20% planner, 30% counter, and 10% data driver.
Yeah.
What
I put, uh, I'll say, 30% on both feeler and data, and then 20% on the other two. That'd be my
Got
revision.
it.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's just fun
of
stuff that we
course.
love to do on this
Yeah.
podcast. All right. So here we go. We're going to wrap this up. So you've helped these high growth organizations to really successfully navigate the complex intersection of operations and strategy and risk. So tell me, what's the most important insight that you'd share with leaders trying to scale their business sustainably while building true resilience against both known and emerging risks?
My biggest insight is test your assumptions and constantly pressure test your business for scale. Create processes that make sense, but don't be so concrete in those processes that you can't change. Right. That's the biggest thing. And hire and rely upon really good people. The way Founder Show has really scaled is that people have stuck around in a startup for years. I've been at the company for 7 years, and uh, there are plenty of others who have outpaced me. They've started as somewhat entry level or mid level employees and are now in positions of serious decision making and ownership. And because they've kind of grown with the company and have really adopted the ethos of adaptability and scalability, that's really helped us as a business kind of achieve where we've gotten to today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your insights and your expertise. Would you share with our audience where they can learn more about you, more about Founder Shield?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Michael Goland, and Founder Shield. Just search Founder Shield and fill out an application, or you can email me, michael@foundershield.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody and help out whoever needs help with their risk coverage.
Awesome sauce. And to our listeners, thank you so, so much for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you've enjoyed this episode, we want you to subscribe it, rate it, share it with your network. Keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.